And if I had to be another person to stand up, I think after really going through this and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Reed didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Reed's not going to fold. Karen Reed's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Reed movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. All right. Good Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome back in here to Let's Talk Live. Today is the Super Sunday show, and we have a lot to go through here on today's episode. I want to welcome everybody into Sunday service here. And it's nice to see a lot of the subscribers here, members, and some channel moderators. And gosh, a lot has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. It never seems to amaze me. As we always turn to a different direction or a different road, it always leads back to all the nefarious things that happen out of Canton, Massachusetts. And we had Turtle Boy that released a story the other day, essentially talking about more details in the Canton cover-up. And I'm going to read his headline here. Sworn affidavit of alleged Commonwealth agent Kate Peter was paid $1,500 monthly and bribed with a couch. I Can't, by Jennifer McCabe, to spread disinformation about Karen Reed while working directly with the Commonwealth, Hank Brennan and Michael Morrissey. Nothing seems to amaze me anymore in all of this. Again, every corner that we're turning here, it's just something else in this case. But I thought what I would do today is bring on a guest that's been here before, and we're going to bring him in right now. Today, we're going to bring in Jason Broyles of the AKA Not Hailey Walbrecht. Did I say it right?
You're getting closer every time. Yeah. you got to hit that T at the end.
Walbrecht. Of the Not Hailey, I'm just saying Not Hailey X account, very known Turtle Boy supporter, and really dives deep into a lot of this stuff and kind of can tell us a little bit about who Kate Peter is. And I wanted to bring Jason on today. So welcome into Let's Talk Live here, Super Sunday show. How you doing, Jason?
Having me. Doing great. Thank you for having me. Excited to get in on this topic this morning. I've been following this. You know, it's funny, every time when you open, last time I was on too, you opened with the description that I'm a well-known Aiden Carney supporter or Turtle Boy supporter. And it's not actually how I came to this. I never would have called myself a Turtle Rider, although I have been following him
sure
for, almost since the beginning, for 5 to 6 years. Being here in the Northeast, it doesn't take long till you eventually hear about Turtle Boy from one of the outrageous stories that he's written. Albeit entertaining and everything else, but I followed Turtle Boy when Kate Peter worked for him. So we're talking all the way back in 2018, 2019. And I posted something within the last week or so that was on Discord from the 2019 timeframe where Josh Abrams, who's Mass Accountability, was posting negative things about Aiden, and Kate Peter was defending Aiden in the comments. It was like kind of a role reversal.
Yeah.
And it was really Kate Peter was the quote that I posted was Kate Peter talking about there's this rumor that Aiden got fired because of something that happened at a Buffalo Bills game, and he was interacting with other fans around him, and there was some banter back and forth, and everyone's saying that that's why he got fired. And I have a Discord post of Kate Peter saying Aiden Carney has never done anything inappropriate with any young females or whatever. So it really is funny to it's funny to see the role reversal and how she's kind of dedicated her life to taking them out. So
it's crazy, you know, and I don't want to call it like clicks, you know, but sometimes when you get a bunch of people that, I don't know, for some reason get into a common cause and there's a lot of conversation going on and maybe nightly conversations, like deep in the back of the mind, there's some nefarious people that kind of infiltrate that, and they'll go, all right, I'm going to play along for a while and see how far I can get. And then I'm going to turn and I want to be the star. I want to be the celebrity in this. And you tend to kind of see that with outside nefarious people. But it's crazy sharing that story about Kate Peter actually defending Aiden. And she used to didn't she used to ghostwrite for him? I think she used to write articles on his blog for him.
She did, and it wasn't even ghostwriting. She was Bristol Turtle Girl.
Oh,
and,
okay.
While her identity wasn't initially known, it did while she was working there, it did come out that she was Kate Peter. And she when people look at Aiden's, especially his previous work, you know, when we talk about the Ratchet Madness and all of these things that happened, he did write a lot of entertaining stories about people in these crazy situations. And he's not always nice. Like, let's face it, he doesn't always have the nicest things to say about everybody. In most cases, he's accurate, but he doesn't always present it in the nicest way. Kate Peter was twice as bad. The things that, so she comes now and kind of claiming this mantle of I'm standing up for the victim or whatever else.
Yeah.
But Kate Peter, the things that Kate Peter wrote about women while she was writing for Aiden Carney were horrific. And ultimately, it came down to everyone finding out that Kate Peter was in similar circumstances or worse than most of the women that she wrote about in terms of her personal life and the things that had happened, and her, you know, ending up by voluntarily signing an adoption petition for 2 of her kids who were removed by the state, and all kinds of other things. And in context, when you look back at what she wrote and you look at her own personal situation, it was so hypocritical that had everyone known at the time, I don't think she would have had the, you know, the initial boost of popularity that she did.
What do you think is the ultimate thing with her to like literally scrub out and destroy Turtle Boy? Like what is this obsession? I mean, he just tries to, I mean, from what I see, is just try to distance as much, but the shit just always keeps coming back around with them.
I've never seen anything like it. He, in my opinion, he does exercise kind of incredible restraint. He doesn't, every once in a while he goes for it, but he really doesn't. I mean, in the stuff that most of the consumers, you know, most of your audience will have seen is, you know, the posts on X or the things like this. But behind the scenes, they're creating basically whole organizations, Team Storm, and we're going to go after Aiden. Like she has kind of dedicated her life to this and has these followers that they always talk about us being a cult and the Karen Reed thing, the cult, the Kate Peter cult, the mass hole mafia is unlike anything I've ever seen, because there are people that are just willing to dedicate their lives. You know, they could just change the channel, right? And proverbial TV language, they could just watch a different YouTube channel. They could just not consume his content. They cannot stop. They're probably a big part of his paid subscriber base on Turtle Club. You know, he'd probably lose at least 10-15% of his revenue on Turtle Club if they just went away.
I mean, that's like what you said. I mean, just kind of turning the other station. You know, it's kind of what I say here. If you don't like me, you don't have to watch me. You know, I don't consume any of that content. Like, I don't want to give them clicks, views. I don't care. But if, you know, TV is going to drop a story and this has something, you know, intertwined, that's pretty serious accusation here. with the Karen Reed trial, of course my antennas are going to go up and say, all right, we need to look at this. Like, let's hear it. The thing I always like about him is that, you know how you say, you know, he says things and he might not say it in a nice way. He may not come out and say it in the way that people want to hear it. He's vulgar. He's loud. That's just who he is. But he always brings receipts along with everything that he puts out there. And that's what makes him so credible in all of this. He always has receipts to back everything up. And, you know, he won't put bullshit out there, which is awesome, because people will just write articles for fluff pieces to get that attention, to bring them into their platform. And they might, you know, not hold that receipt. And then you hear a couple of weeks later, they're retracting something, or that statement that I said, you know, I got to go back and rephrase that. But with him, you know, he waits and he just compiles all the information. He has the receipts ready, and then he'll publish, and you're like, holy shit.
It is true. He's very disciplined about kind of gathering a mountain of things, so that by the time he writes, it's actually, I've tried to pattern my writing after that. So when I'm not gonna mention by name, but we all know I kind of wrote a prolific piece or series of pieces about another creator who keeps attempting to pick back up on a spark and failing. Every step of the way, if I ask a question, I already know the answer, or I've already got 12 things. So every step of the way, I try to be a couple of steps in front, and I try to anticipate responses. Same thing happened with Grant. Grant Ellis-Smith is a great, or Grant Smith Ellis is a great example of that, where we had the story about Moore Stringer, and Moore Stringer was assaulted by two men. Grant basically lied to the police about the circumstances of what had occurred, and Moore Stringer was the one charged instead of his assailants. The case ultimately got dismissed. We did a lot of work behind the scenes at making sure people had the right information. And although the case ultimately got dismissed, one of the people that assaulted him turned out to be a child rapist. It's a horrible story. They have, they're currently facing charges. It was this nightmare of a story, and Grant was very close to these people.
Ugh.
And so I asked Grant publicly on Twitter, do you know this person? And can you please describe the extent of your relationship? And he said, I don't know that person at all. And so my very next tweet was posting a picture of Grant embracing the person from the surveillance footage outside the Heinz Convention Center in Boston, to watch him backtrack. But I don't ask the first question if I don't already know the answer, you know? And that I learned from him. I really did learn that if you're gonna report on something, have the receipts. And we see this all the time. I see articles about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see from some Kate Peter people or Lindsay Gaetani people, and I see some of the articles about me, and I really have had to train myself to almost not respond, because they're just so ridiculously untrue, and they never have that. They're full of allegations. They never have any evidence. And because the things that they're writing about me, there's no evidence to be had, you know? And I have to, at first it terrifies you as a person, right? Because you're like, oh, this is out there in the community and people.
Right.
I write about local political issues on Facebook under my own name here in Bristol, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And whenever I have someone in a corner, I suddenly see a Grant Smith Ellis post appear, or Lindsay Gaetani post appear. And so these people are pulling out these things that these people have written about me. And it always gives me an opportunity to talk to my local audience about, oh yeah, I'm glad you're siding with this person. Let me tell you a little bit about them. You know, so let's go into that. But it really is something that's missing. It's one of the criticisms of independent media, is that they're loose with facts. And I try not to do that. I try to follow his model. I know you do too. I know that other people that we're friends with follow that same model. If I told people everything that I heard, every rumor that I heard, or everything, you know, I could probably fill timelines like Fox News or CNN. I could probably sit here around the clock and tell you these things about everybody.
Yeah.
But we wait till we have receipts. It's an important aspect of what we do.
Yeah, I won't put anything out there if I don't have a person that has told me that would come up, you know, and talk on my panel, or any type of conversation with a receipt that actually shows that. I mean, it's just, it's not worth putting something out there that's going to end up getting you caught down the line if it's not true, because people are just going to see through that right away. It's funny. I was looking at, I have never really been over there, but I was looking at the Masshole Mafia channel the other day because when all this stuff came up. So I got to look at the channel, and I came across the video. I think I played like 2 or 3 minutes of it, and it was like Kate talking about like the paid protesters that are out in front of the paid supporters that are out in front of the Karen Reed trial. You saw it all through last trial, and Alan Jackson is the one that's leading all of this. And I'm like, this is so far out. Like, I mean, it's past Pluto. I mean, if that's true and I'm a paid, I haven't seen one check, like it's wild with all of this stuff. And I'm like, where are you coming up with this? What
it is. And the paid thing is a crazy allegation. It's one of the reasons when I've been at this, I didn't follow this story from the very beginning, but I've been at it since, I think it was in August of 2023 when Nick Rocco and I started working on the billboard. And it's one of the reasons why I never told anyone. It was almost a year later. I never told anybody that I designed the billboard with Nick. Yeah. Because it wasn't about that for me. It wasn't about credit. It wasn't about anything else. It was about supporting a cause that I believed in. It was never about me until others made it about me. But from my standpoint, watching that happen, you see all of these people, and it's this combination of, oh, I'm going to get this salacious story out because the sensationalism is going to get me attention. I belong to the Society of Professional Journalists. Like I have invested in trying to do this the right way, and I'm not going to let any of those people, take my reputation out of the way just to get a little bit of a quick credit or a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
You were saying that you don't do anything unless you have someone who will come forward.
Sure.
I don't always, in terms of having receipts, I always do my due diligence. But if I have somebody, I have sources, and this is true again in the local reporting I do or in this stuff, I have sources that can't come forward, right? They're going to lose their job. Yeah. They're going to lose their livelihood. And in those circumstances, I always make sure that I have a second source. As long as if I have two people who are willing to at least go on the record with me to say, this is what's happened, but can you keep my identity secret? As long as I can validate their credibility and get the story from two different directions, I'll run with it. I'm comfortable. Yeah. But other than that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying. It's just confirming the source and making sure that information is credible. And again, just going back to TB, he's always on top of that. He will not post something that's bullshit, and he'll have multiple receipts to back any claim or any, falsehoods up. So let's transition into this article. Let's go through this article. First of all, I just want to say good morning to Kelly Reed. She was checking in with us a couple of minutes ago. I saw Nan Gallagher in the chat. She's always a panel guest here, so it's nice to see everybody here. I saw some moderators popping in, members, and some new subscribers too. Want to get this out of the way. Lori, thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. I appreciate that. And Olaf, the Russian metalhead, has said the Canton studio casting couches are so 2024. All right, let's get into this article, Jason. So here we go. The Canton cover-up part 508, sworn affidavit alleged Commonwealth agent Kate Peter was paid $1,500 monthly, bribed with a couch by Jennifer McCabe to spread disinformation about Karen Reed while working directly with Hank Brennan and Michael Morrissey. So I'll read this here. Last October, my attorney, Mark Betterow, filed a letter with the court sent to Special Prosecutor Robert Cosgrove detailing how the fake victim's phone extraction revealed text messages showing that the fake victim, Kate Peter, disgraced state trooper Leah Guastano.
It's a Genduso.
Thank you. Genduso. Thank you. I always get these last names wrong. Special Prosecutor Ken Mello and Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully conspired to set me up with witness intimidation charges that led to 60 days in incarceration. We requested that Cosgrove responded to the bombshell allegations by providing us the discovery related to Peter's communications with the DA's office, since there has been claimed under oath, keep this in mind, people, under oath in court to be an agent of the Commonwealth. And it's been 6 months and we have received nothing. So today we filed a motion to compel discovery in the witness intimidation charges against me. The motion include a sworn affidavit, I like to say that, from a woman who has been friends with Peter for the last year and provided evidence that Peter, aka Mafia Masshole, has been paid by the Norfolk County DA's office to spread misinformation. And obviously here is the court document. I'm not going to read through that, but I will drop the link after this. But I just want to get into maybe this portion of it here. So it says, my name is blank. I reside in Massachusetts. I'm of age. Complaint to this affidavit. I've been friendly with Caitlin Peter here after Peter for close to a year. I have multiple conversations, face-to-face interactions with Peter. Peter's volunteered information to me about the Karen Reed case countless times through our friendship. All factual representations below are from what Peter told me about her involvement in the Karen Reed and Aiden Carney cases. During Karen Reed's first trial, she was in regular communications with ADA Adam Lally. At one point, prior to jury deliberations, Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch meeting, I'm going to keep saying Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the foreperson. Let's see. I just lost. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I lost the piece of the article here. Specifically, the defense has made 3 demand letters to ordered and required discovery concerning Caitlin Peter, who has information and belief is working as an agent of the Commonwealth in the prosecution against Carney and Karen Reed. Although our first demand was made more than 6 months ago, the prosecution neither provided the defense of any request discovery nor indication of none of the request items or information within the possession, custody, control of the prosecutor. This is big. Working with the Commonwealth. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, this is big. And I think in the reader, there was just other pages that you didn't go down, but in this, where they're talking about, they didn't provide the discovery nor indicate that it's in the possession or whatever. I run into this a lot with FOIA requests, right? So you'll make a FOIA request and I want them to be specific, because what will happen is if they don't have items that are responsive, sometimes you don't know if they just don't have items that are responsive or if they're just ignoring your request or if they're doing this. So I always try to write my FOIA request in a way that say, please indicate that you've received the request. Please indicate if you have materials that are responsive. And if you're claiming exemption, identify the specific exemption under the law, depending on the state that I'm making the request in. So this is what's happened with them. And initially in the first part, for a little bit of backstory for people that don't know about his case, there was another special prosecutor before Cosgrove by the name of Ken Mello. I think he's actually still listed on the case. And they would make requests of very specific requests for discovery for specific things from him. He just wouldn't respond, or he'd come into court and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then he just wouldn't do them.
Yeah.
It all got wrapped up in that he had some health concerns and that he wasn't in good shape, and enter former Judge Robert Cosgrove to become the new special prosecutor, or at least the one who's filling the gap. And everyone thought, like, okay, at least now we're going to get some answers. And, now we're going to get some response to our discovery request. And now we're going to get these things because this guy's a former judge. And yet hearing after hearing after hearing, it's the same thing. There's no movement on, there was no movement for over a year on a request for a taint team. There's no movement on any of the motions that they've made or requests that they've filed or done things. District court, some of this stuff is in district court, so that's kind of expected there. But by the time you get into the superior court, you really expect to have these things lined up so that when you make a request, you're going to get a ruling, you're going to get discovery, you're going to do these things. And for some inexplicable reason, the Commonwealth in his case has just been allowed to pass the ball. And it's constantly an excuse as to why this couldn't get done.
You think they're waiting for the Karen Reed trial to conclude to see where they're going to go with this?
I do think that there is some of that in there. And I think that I I always try to be an optimist about the court system and about the people in it. You know, initially when people were saying Judge Bev is corrupt, my opinion is no, Judge Bev is biased, right? So you see that she's biased, and it appears to be less about carrying the water for the Commonwealth and more about the fact that she doesn't like Alan Jackson, right? Like that was my initial.
Excuse me.
She's really challenged my somewhat, you know, it's odd that I'm defending her by saying that she's just biased and not corrupt, right? Because they're both horrible. But she's actually even challenged that for me with some of the things that she's done and some of the rulings that she's made. The same thing goes for when Cosgrove came into Turtle Boy's case. I said, oh, well, at least this guy's a former judge. We're going to get some integrity to the process here. And even in the beginning, his bumbling seemed more like, oh, he's a little bit old and maybe he's just not quite as with it anymore. And he doesn't understand the technology when we're talking about the phone things. It wasn't until the last hearing. Turtle Boy actually talked about this on his show last night. It wasn't until the last hearing when they made a last-minute motion to revoke his bond. So they made a last-minute. So they were going in for this new witness intimidation charge regarding the recording that took place out in front of D&E Pizza. But Cosgrove told Tim Bradle, Turtle Boy's attorney, that we're not seeking a bond revocation or anything like that. It wasn't until they got into court that day for the hearing that they dropped the bomb that they were seeking to revoke his bond. I never tied them together, but when Turtle Boy talked about it on the show last night, if you look at the dates, and I don't remember the exact dates, so I'm not going to say them, but there was the alleged, what this whistleblower now has alleged in this affidavit filed in Turtle Boy's case was that on one date, there was a meeting between Jen McCabe, Kate Peter, and Michael Morrissey. 2 days later, like a day before that, 2 days before that meeting, so March 16th, March 18th, thanks. So I think that on March 14th, there was when Cosgrove said, we're not seeking a bond revocation. There was this meeting on March 16th with, and it's a meeting where Jen McCabe told Michael Morrissey, allegedly, I'm not going to testify unless you put Aiden Carney in jail.
And Karen, I think there's some implications in the article about Karen Reed as well, too.
Right, that they wanted them both to be in jail.
Yes.
But this specific meeting, so March 14th, Cosgrove says we're not seeking a bond revocation. March 16th, there's this meeting. By March 17th, Cosgrove was filing the bond revocation motion, and March 18th was the court date.
And how it all works, isn't it funny how it all lines up and works out that way, Jason?
And it's really interesting because you normally wouldn't see this, right? So we have two, even though the cases are somewhat related because of the subject matter and the parties, right? We have these two separate cases, and normally we don't have the chance to zoom back and look at the bigger picture as to what's happening here and how it's all interrelated, because court cases are notoriously, you know, narrow in scope. They're charging the defendant with a specific crime based on a specific set of facts. We don't normally have this overview where we can zoom back and say, oh, the people in this case are behaving poorly in this other case. Like we saw in that hearing, and we see Hank Brennan come in and they're trying not to notice Karen Reed to come to that hearing about Turtle Boy's phone records when they're trying to obtain them under her docket number to use them against her. So this really is kind of a unique, we have like a unique case on top of a unique case on top of a unique case here. Yeah. It really is interesting.
And it's interesting too that, you know, during that hearing, let's get both of them at the same defense table. You know, that's all for show. That's all for the cameras. I mean, they're trying to work this whole thing out, you know, to really make Karen look bad, you know, through the public perception, and Aiden as well too. You know, big fucking deal. You know, like, it's a journalist that went out and broke a story. Okay. Every journalist has a right to do that if they have the information, the receipts to back everything up. And clearly, this is just the attempt to keep suppressing Aiden. Like, look, we saw the whole act with trying to get him outside of the you know, not being able to sit in court as a reporter. And finally, when we went through that hearing, you know, Judge Bev gets Hank Brennan up and says, well, kind of like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, you know, we're just going to have to see how our case plays out here in the next couple of weeks. And we may call him, we may not, you know, we may tailor it. And then you see Tim Bradle step up and just essentially said, Judge, you know, if they're going to call him, we're just going to plead the fifth and end this and just be over with it. And then I actually like this move by Bev. She gets Hank Brennan back up and calls him to the carpet. And I felt was kind of, you know, a good thing for Aiden, and just said, look, what are you doing here? Like, are you going to call him or not? Let's just settle this and get it over with today. And, you know, essentially we saw the result of that. So, you know, I have to kind of say in that sense, you know, Bev kind of did her job there. And I think she's just getting kind of tired of hearing all the static and was just like, let's just get this done today. I'm not going to be kicking the can down the road here.
And I have sources on this, but it's not something that I've reported on yet, but there is the sense that she is acutely worried, and it's not unusual actually for a judge in her position. They don't like to be reversed. They don't like to be reversed. They don't like to commit reversible error. I get the sense, and this is just my opinion, that she's always walking that line, and that she's trying to, if we were talking about Judge Bev just as a judge compared to, take the activism out of this and my belief that Karen Read is innocent, and just from a purely objective look at how she's operating as a judge, I say we see things like the buffer zone ruling where she doesn't often make required findings. Like if she's required to make findings of something in order to support an order that she issues, she skips the step. You see her not ordering evidentiary hearings in a lot of cases here, and a lot of motions. She'll deny the motion without ordering an evidentiary hearing where she really should have. So there are a lot of things that she does to kind of play fast and loose in that regard, in terms of the appealability of something and whether or not she's putting herself at risk of reversal. So it really is interesting, but I also you kind of see her ebb and flow. So she has these swings where she feels like, oh, this one might be a little bit too far, so now I'm gonna give one back to the other side.
Yeah. Let's I just want to pull this up because I actually found what I wanted to read, and actually Aiden did a great job. He kind of cut this up and put it out. And what I was getting to is that during this is going back to the friend that has actually clicked up with Peter. So she said, going back to Karen Read's first trial, she was in regular communications with ADM Adam Lally. At one point, prior to the jury deliberations, Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch meeting, Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the foreperson is a retired police officer, and that the juror, is guaranteeing a mistrial. This is what was verbally reported to me by Peter, and this is the alleged fourth person, Ryan Pietrowski, and it says Miss Peter told the source that she sent $1,500 via Cash App every month for assistance in the Karen Read and Turtle Boy prosecutions. Peter also confessed that she believes Karen Read is innocent. And the funny thing is about this, I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and I look at like Peter and Plevin, and I'm like, you know, deep down inside that they all know that Karen Read is 100% innocent. And I think that, you know, they tried to play this like, well, I'm going to flip and I'm going to go against the grain because maybe I can bring some of that attention to myself. Maybe I can raise my platform. I'll be the arch nemesis of this huge, you know, Karen Read movement and Turtle Boy and Karen Read. And let's try to start bringing some of that attention on. And I was laughing because I said, you know, you look at all of the things that Plevin has done, you know, recently over the last year, being all those court TV appearances, not his platform has slightly moved. And you would think like this is your opportunity. This has been your opportunity. You've been on court TV. You've gone against Nick Rocco, you know, hundreds of times on there. You think this would be elevating your platform. Has done nothing for that side.
I talk about this all the time. He's got no bump. It really is.
Nothing.
I think what he doesn't understand is that he is the William Hung of American Idol, the dude in that season where he's saying she bangs. You know, they would put these contestants on that were ridiculous. It was kind of mean-spirited, actually, because they were literally putting them up there as cannon fodder to make fun of them. And I think that Kevin doesn't understand that that's what his role is in this, starting with the ridiculous animation and all of these things. They're definitely, he did the math. He looked at what was happening in the beginning. he was independent, but leaning Karen is innocent.
Yeah, he was a Karen Reed supporter in the beginning.
And all of this changed when he figured out that there wasn't room for him. I think that on a couple of occasions, he said something that Turtle Boy kind of objected to and maybe snapped back at him. And that was all it took. And that really is the case. It's interesting with all this mixed motivation that people have, because we have Turtle Boy offends people and suddenly they're against Karen Reed. Jennifer Coffindaffer is someone who looks at which way the wind's blowing and tries to take whatever position she thinks is going to make her the most popular, claims that she's always out there for the victim. But you see her posting about Sandra Birchmore, and look at Mizzy's post or the Sandra Birchmore people. When you see that, they actually are like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about this. But now that it's gotten this attention with the FBI arresting Farwell and everything else, suddenly Jennifer Coffindaffer is in it for Sandra Birchmore. You know, she's super transparent, but you have all these motivations. So you have people looking for attention and you have people looking for revenge. And in most of the cases of the people who are prominent in the anti-free Karen Reed movement, they're a combination of those two things. So everyone looks at Kate Peter and they just see the 5-year obsession that she's had with Turtle Boy, now I guess going on 6 and 7 years.
Almost 7 years, yeah.
Yeah. And everyone looks at it in that regard. But Kate Peter, when I knew her, when I first encountered her in the wild, I was advocating for some sexual assault victims in a case in Texas. And it involved a very well-known, probably one of the largest First Amendment auditors, who over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, kind of a thing, who was being charged with molesting his daughters. He had lied about his identity, had been convicted of rape years earlier while pretending to be a police officer, I might add, and had gotten this following. His victims were getting attacked by his supporters. And I just noticed a comment in a YouTube video one day of a woman saying, this stuff isn't true. You know, my father's horrible and these are the things that he did to us. And then so I started sticking up for that. Never having spoken with them, I started sticking up for that commenter and doing that. Next thing I know, I got contacted by another one of his daughters, and we're still great friends to this day. Long story short, I approached Kate Peter because I was reading the blog. Turtle Boy was kind of part of my daily, let's just scan and see if there's new stories, entertainment. And I tried to reach out through the Gmail and I didn't get a response. And Kate Peter, because she was active and commenting on the First Amendment auditor community, ended up in a Discord that I was also in that would discuss this case. And I sent
Discords.
and I sent a message to Kate and I had a conversation with her saying, hey, do you think you could get Aiden to cover this? Do you think you could get him to write about it? And I proceeded to give her some information on that story that I obviously got from the insiders who were involved in it. Yeah. And there was some of that information. She asked me a couple questions, and there was some of that information that was sensitive. So I made it a point to say to her, yes, I'll give you this on background, but please don't release this particular piece of information. So Kate ended up by writing about it. So I'll give her credit for that. I really wanted Aiden to cover it. But that's how we met. And so we had a little back and forth. When they first split, I actually thought that some of the things that were happening was Kate was pressuring Aiden to do more on YouTube. He wasn't quite ready to do that, but she was pressuring him to do that. And I thought she had some good ideas. So when they first split, I won't say I was Team Kate, but I was like, she had some really good points and he probably should have considered those. As we moved on, the minute that there was any kind of, here we are years later, Hailey Walbrecht now exists, and I'm writing about this, and I'm writing these things that I have since learned about Kate through the intervening years. And all of a sudden, Kate figures out who I am. And boom, up come these Discord messages from 5 years earlier, these private messages where she releases the information without considering that I asked her to keep it private. That's just harmful to victims in a case in Texas who did nothing more than have their own family members harm them in some way to get even with me. That's who Kate Peter is. It doesn't matter. There are no principles. This is not about defending or supporting victims. That's what I do. You know what I mean? That's what I do at the end of the day. And what she did was despicable. So she released this information. It was indirectly harmful in terms of hurting the feelings of people who had already been victimized, and she just doesn't care. That's what.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about, you know, one-upping my own status in situations like that. What can I do to elevate myself? And that's why I said I think that they literally went to the drawing table and said, okay, well, we might have a piece of a space here. You know, we see everybody kind of leaning to the, you know, that everybody's come in and you know, the free Karen Reed side. Well, why don't I flip and I can start creating content there, and maybe this elevates my platform? Kind of a sick way of thinking.
It is.
Absolute sick way of thinking. But
right. I think you and I are the same in that if I didn't believe in this, I couldn't come here and talk about this. I couldn't take this position about Karen Reed being innocent. I couldn't take this position about any of this. I'm just not, I'm passionate about what I do. And I know you're passionate about what you do. So I'm just not an actor. I'm not going to come here and pretend that, oh, this woman is innocent, even though I think she's guilty. Like,
do you think I'm going to, yeah. I mean, do you think I would sit here and pretend and put all this time into this to pretend? I mean, that's insane. I mean, because eventually at some point, the audience is going to kind of start figuring it out. I think the people that you surround yourself with, you know, in you and I have talked in person, you know, multiple times, and, you know, the people that I have on my shows, I've met with them in person multiple times. I think people are going to start picking up. Like you can't fake it. Something will slip, something will come out, and you start kind of seeing this shit with everybody. And this is the situation here. I mean, so anyway, we'll go back to a little bit of this. So let's see. Peter has confessed that she believes Karen Reed is innocent, but she still has to play the game. And we just talked about that by publicly promoting, advocating on social media that Reed is guilty. She told the sources that she believed that John O'Keefe was killed by someone inside 34 Fairview, whose name is redacted on the affidavit. The source was also presented for a phone-in, which she heard Hank Brennan's voice while he was speaking with Miss Peter. Miss Peter allegedly told Brennan that her people leaked information to the media that the federal investigation was over, something that was reported by anti-Karen Reed Twitter trolls prior to the Ted Daniel reporting the same thing. Peter told the source that due to her assistance of the Commonwealth's prosecution of me, quote, no matter what violations I'm charged with, Morsley is keeping me out of jail. It should be noted that Miss Peter was currently being charged with violating a restraining order against a victim she stalked and terrorized for a year in not one, but two Norfolk County courts, Dedham and Stoughton, in addition to two felony witness intimidation charges in Dedham and Leominster District Courts. So they charge Aiden with witness intimidation. They want to put him behind bars, and they did for 60 days, but yet someone is charged. His nemesis is charged with the same exact thing, but they pay her. All right, I see how this works now, Jason.
It's actually funny because on that topic, again, I published a tweet yesterday that just simply said, imagine if on December 12th at 9:37 p.m., Lindsay Gaetani texted Kate Peter a message saying, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it in front of me, but a message saying they think they're moving your case because he has a conflict. They don't even, like, they're so dumb they don't even realize that you're the one working with the police. It's funny too, because she actually capitalized the your and the him when she was talking about Aiden. So we're talking all the way back in Lindsay Gaetani's messages from December 12th that she's having a conversation with Kate Peter. At December 12th, she was actually still somewhat romantically linked with Aiden Carter.
Yeah, she was.
She's another one. When you go back, I'll have a lot more reporting on this. There's more to come. But when you go back to look at the evolution of that entire scenario, Lindsay Gaetani, as early as October, which is basically right when she first started a relationship, had created a second Twitter account under the name, it was Jane something, and was already talking to Trolla Holomio or whatever, and Kate Peter, having conversations with these people when they didn't even know that she was Lindsay and that she was Aiden's girlfriend. She was coming off that I'm a friend of this person who's seeing him, and actually giving them information while she was first dating him. And a lot of it revolved around the fact that she was jealous about a birthday party that she was proposing for Aiden coming up in December, and other people started jumping in on it. You have the people that were jumping in on it. They were suggesting venues. They were doing things. They were actually just trying to help put together a party that would be great for him. Those include the Roccos. They include other people. And you can watch if anyone opposed her or had an idea that other people responded well to in those group messages. Those are the people that she targets even till now, because she couldn't handle that they got the attention or they got a bit of recognition, or that
Jason, it's the me shit. I mean,
it really is crazy.
Yeah.
But you see this, and you know, I could probably write a book on the setup to get him charged with witness intimidation against Lindsay Gaetani. And you look back, this is some of what happens to me, where I was referring to, if I'm doing local reporting, suddenly I see something Lindsay wrote about me, or Kate, or Grant Smith Ellis. Grant, you have this scenario where all of these people came back around. Leah Genduso, a Mass State Trooper who Aiden wrote about because she was the girlfriend of a drug trafficker.
Yep.
She herself was a drug dealer and would deliver the drugs for him. Had an affair with a Mass State Trooper who was investigating the boyfriend, got basically ushered into the Mass State Police without any mention of her past or her involvement in drug dealing or whatever else done there. It got covered up and washed over. They used her as like a public relations tool. They gave her a canine. Normally, if you get a special assignment to be like a canine trooper, you've been a trooper, you've got some experience under your belt, you do this, they give you the training, but you paid your dues in order to get that promotion. They made her a canine trooper pretty much immediately, and suddenly she's making appearances with the lieutenant governor or the governor. She's all over the place. She was like their public relations tool.
Wow.
And can you imagine this as a drug dealer who did that? More crazy than that, Aiden finds out. There's obviously people are disgruntled around her when they see that. So there's sources that give him information. He writes the story. Several state troopers end up by having to resign, including her. She gets bounced out. After that, she has a sexual relationship with Aiden Carney after she got fired from a Mass State Trooper. And then suddenly, here we are, fast forward years later to December of 2023. And suddenly she is involved in a plot with Kate Peter, Lindsay Gaetani, Ken Mello, Brian Tully, in order to jail Aiden Carney so that he's going to be in prison for the course of the first Karen Reed trial, which was their plan. That's actually how I went from being someone who just sat on the sidelines and was following this Turtle Boy, lightly and doing things like that. I was able to start to piece together what was happening prior to even seeing all of these text messages and everything else, just based on the comments that I saw on posts and things like that. So I started posting about it. And as soon as Aiden got out of lockup, he saw some of my posts and sent me a message to correct something that I wrote or give me some clarification on something or whatever else. And that's kind of what started our association with each other in order to meet. So I comment on Karen Reed, I cover it, but I've been locked on this story since it was occurring. You know what I mean? In terms of what was happening with that setup. And it rivals the things that happened in Karen's cases with the state police being involved in a setup and doing all of these things. You really see this microcosm in these two cases of everything that's wrong with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and the corruption in the Mass State Police and all of these things that go along with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like they ushered in people that were just, kind of just surrounded about Aiden. Let's infiltrate those people and bring them in. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's get these people that are on the edge. We know that they may be having some conflicts with them. Let's have some conversations and pull them in. And they're essentially just using them as well to use them to get close to Aiden, to get information, and initially try to keep him and put him behind bars. It's wild stuff.
You look at these troll accounts online too. So like the ones that are all Spade and Carney and Karen's a killer and all of
Yeah.
these accounts, these outrageous accounts that say these things online. Again, no evidence, no receipts. They just come out with the crazy stories. And we can start tying them all back to people that he wrote about.
Yep.
Like literally. So they've gone throughout, and this is a method. So you brought up Lauren Murray a little while ago. This is the method. Kate Peter has this thing where she will, I call it the Kate Peter approach. When she goes to someone that she wants to get on her side, it's easy. If Aiden wrote about you, she can reach out to you and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry this happened."
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to console you and help you. Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
if you talk to those people, they're brainwashed. She'll tell you Kate Peter's the best person in the world and she's their friend and do all of these things. But someone like Lauren Murray, you have, and similar to how she correctly got Lindsay on board, Kate will do this thing where she hits you and causes you, like, if you're a regular person and suddenly you're getting talked about on a YouTube channel or written about on a blog or on Twitter and you're doing all these things, it's really distressing. I know this from not just my own experience, but a lot of the people that I talk to and people who are close to me, some of whom have been attacked for associating with me. You get in this mindset where you want to crawl into a shell, right? You want it to stop. You'll just do anything to make it stop. It's a good tactic to shut people up, but that's not how Kate uses it. She does it, and then she'll wait. She'll come back. She'll offer you an olive branch and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," right? So she'll start this conversation with you saying, like, "I'm sorry that this is happening to you. Maybe it wasn't fair of me to do that or whatever else." And then she'll leak the fact that she's communicating with you. This is what happens with her and Aiden. So she leaks the fact that she's communicating with that person, which causes Aiden to start to be like, "Whoa, what's going on?" So he either is going to go to that person and talk to them, or he's going to back off of his relationship with them. And then Kate's got him hook, line, and sinker, because then she uses that, "I don't know why he's doing this to you, and it's so horrible," and blah, blah, blah. And then she's your best friend. And she takes these people who, let's face it, a lot of them are just attention seekers to begin with. Wow. And she opens the door. So there's our Kate Peter method. And she uses it over and over and over again.
It's crazy. It's like very fucking sociopathic behavior.
It is. People say Kate's smart, and I say Kate's devious. She's not.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a lot of self-control, as we find out. Again, Aiden played last night the voicemails that she calls up and leaves for him, screaming and threatening him. There's a really interesting one where she talks about how, "I'm the Jane account. It's me and not Lindsay." Meanwhile, I'm also simultaneously reading text messages where she's talking to Lindsay about Lindsay being the Jane account. You know what I mean? So it really is. It's soap opera writers couldn't write these stories. It's crazy.
So I mean, nothing surprises me anymore. It's always we're turning a different corner every day. Let's just take pause here for 2 seconds, and then we'll pull up a little bit more of the article. We'll finish up here in a couple of minutes. I just want to get these off the table. Post-menopausal New Hampshire woman, thank you for becoming a new member. I appreciate that the Goodmans are always in here. They're dropping a membership, so welcome, new member. We have Kevin, thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. And then Tsunami said, "Can't wait till I see my first witness alessiation." I love that.
Alessination. Yeah, that's really good.
I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, let's pull this back up. I want to get into I want to find the Jennifer McCabe stuff, because this is a pretty deep article. Here it says, Peter was told by Jennifer McCabe that Jennifer McCabe informed Michael Morsi that she's not, and we talked about this earlier, not testifying unless Turtle Boy is in jail. Michael Morsi informed Jennifer McCabe he would then have to subpoena her, and Jennifer McCabe told Michael Morsi, then we won't say what you're going to say, what you want us to say. It's kind of like strong arming, isn't it?
Well, it's not only that. That particular one is it's outrageous, right? Because Michael Morsi is the person that actually has or had the power and should have used it to actually investigate this case.
Yeah.
And Jen McCabe is right at the top of the list of suspects of covering up this murder. So for her to be able to walk into the sitting district attorney and take such a strong position,
power.
You look at that and you're saying, wow, because the district attorney could just say, actually, you know what? We're going to dig into this a little bit deeper, and maybe there is something to your role here. But she's now got him in the corner, right? Once you start covering something up, it's really hard to stop.
Yeah. It's crazy. Power, total power. Peter got rid of her phone that day after Aiden announced on his live show that he was looking to get in personal communications with Michael Morrissey. Peter said that they never will get the communications between me and Morrissey. The day that Peter showed up to protest at Karen Reed's trial, Peter informed me Jennifer McCabe got paid for for her show of support. On March 16, 2025, Peter told me that she went to meet with Michael Morrissey and Jennifer McCabe at an undisclosed location in Braintree. When Peter returned home, she had a manila envelope in her hand. Peter was informed that she had seen emails that are subject to protective order between Karen Reed prosecution team and Jennifer McCabe. Peter reported to me that upon request, Hank Brennan, she provided the spreadsheet of all the Free Karen Reed Facebook supporters to the Commonwealth for his upcoming trial. Peter told me that Hank Brennan is providing information to federal authorities regarding Karen Reed and Carney because he wants them in jail before the trial. Peter told me that she's going to start rumors about jurors being afraid to serve because Turtle Boy will go after them, and everyone is working overtime to make sure that Turtle Boy can't be in court for the trial. Jason, comment on this.
Well, you see this, you see his post that he put after it. The funny thing is it's really, really helpful to us when we get things like this where they have dates, right? So on March 16th, this occurred. On, April 3rd, this occurred, because we can actually look, if you tie that back, again, this is where we zoom out and you take a view of what was happening. When she talks about going for a meeting and then Kate coming back with an envelope, if you look at the troll activity online, the AFKR trolls, you can actually see a correlation between when the troll activity ramps up, because that comes in cycles, right? So you have your lulls, but we've known for a long time that these things are a campaign. So you have this situation where all of a sudden you see some of these accounts you don't even see in between. You only see, they pop out, they take part in whatever this little campaign is. I'm not making the allegation they do about, oh, these are paid trolls or paid supporters or whatever else. These are a core of people who Kate Peter can contact at any moment. There's a much larger story. Everyone sees people like Salty Steno, people like Julie Carpenter. People see all of these people who came to this case, but who are not tied to the area. They're not tied to, yes, they're true crime followers in general, but there's a whole group of women that started, they call themselves the Pesky Ladies. They started during the Murdaugh trial. They were followers of a journalist, Mandy Matney. And all of a sudden they formed this group where they were going after people. They call themselves the anti-trolls, right? They're going after the people that they say are trolls. But that's since spiraled out of control. And now we see them here in this case, and we see them moving around. There are allegations within those groups that they're using their law enforcement connections to run people's information, including people in this case. So you have a woman in that group whose husband works for a district attorney down in, I believe, Georgia. He's a DA's investigator. You have all of this stuff. I've actually talked to a number of journalists that covered that trial because we're working on a much larger story of these organized people who are actually trying to influence the outcome of a trial by contacting judges, by writing letters, by doing things. This is organized. So while you have a lot of organic support for Karen Reed and Turtle Boy, make no mistake, the other side, especially with these Kate Peter massholes and these pesky ladies united, you have the other side who is very organized in their opposition. They have an objective. They have different things. And when you see that, the list of Facebook supporters, I can't tell you a very specific story because the person that it happened to is basically in fear for them.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that when you have people show up in Dedham to stand on the sidewalk or do whatever else, and the Mass State police officers and they've never been politically active and they've never done anything, and the Mass State police officers can identify them by their face on site, by picture, and know their name, that's a really scary thing. And the way that they do that is they're outsourcing a lot of this data collection. This is what Kate Peter and her people are doing. One more. You have Biff Thunder Muffin. I'm guessing it's not his real name. Although
maybe it is.
If it is, I apologize, Mr. Thunder Muffin. Literally has a cloud-based server that archives every bit of content. I'm sure this show will be in that archive today. It's probably being archived in real time. They identify every content creator that they believe is in favor of Karen Read or somehow pro Karen Read. They archive every bit of Facebook content that happens in that group, every post that goes in there. They identify as many of the people as they can. They are organized. They have people working on this in the background, identifying commenters and YouTube videos. Who do we think this is? Who do we think that is? They're creating all this information, not the government. These individuals are creating this information with the intent of providing it to the government to use in any way that they can, so that they're lobbying for people to be charged with witness intimidation, myself included, on a million occasions. When I was going to hearings in Dedham, or when I'd go show up, I would put a 26-character alphanumeric passcode on my phone, because I was saying, like, if they're going to get into it, I'm going to make it a little bit hard for them. This is the kind of thing that we're facing, and it's not a joke, and it's not just your normal social media banter back and forth. This is really happening.
It's like deep state shit. You know what I mean? It's like deep state shit from an outside organization. You know,
it is. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
No, I'm not.
Right? So when I start seeing this stuff, I start saying, oh, this can't be true. But when you start to dig and look in and share information on our side, again, talking to these journalists in South Carolina who covered the Murdaugh trial, talking to these other things, this is a very, very real and scary scenario where you have a lot of people look at this case and they look at the witnesses and they say, at the Karen Read trial, and they say, you can't expect that all of these people are involved in a conspiracy. And the truth is it doesn't take all of those people. What it takes is let's say you're an EMT or a firefighter, and your coworker, who you literally put your lives in each other's hands, says that she heard someone say something, and people are going to think I'm crazy. Can you back me up? And then you're like, oh yeah, and you all talk about it, and you say, if what she's telling you is true and you trust this person, like, it's not going to hurt for me just to say I heard it too, or whatever. You believe her, and because you believe what she said, you may also think Karen Read is guilty. So you're like, well, I'm doing the right thing in the long run. It doesn't take long for people to start to justify doing something like telling a little white lie. And once you're in, you're stuck, because it's really hard to go back later without putting yourself in legal liability to say, you know, we saw it on the stand. We saw it on the stand with Carrie Roberts. She actually did what most of them never do, which is she admitted she never heard Karen Read ask Jen McCabe to Google search how long to die in the cold. Yeah. But it's almost unheard of. That's why that was like an earth-shattering moment. And you see, what did everyone immediately say about Carrie Roberts? She's a liar. You can't trust her credibility anymore. You have all of these things. There's some seriously negative connotation that's been transferred to her for doing that. I think she finally told the truth, because she's probably afraid of the feds and what's happening out there and all of the supposedly closed investigations. But at the end of the day, most people don't want any part in that. They're just going to they're going to stick to their story and try and get out of it. And it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that some of them are feeling the heat's coming down.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a lot of their testimonies change, but I think a lot of them are going to, keep their back up against the wall. I think you saw an example of that with Nuttall the other day when we're going through that. And Jackson's like, I literally just showed you the video. And, well, he's like, but the video that you showed me is like, it's the same video. The timestamp's not off it. And you're talking about, you heard Karen Read say this, but then you just said that there was, commotion in the background. If you're focusing on a patient and you have noise in the background and your sole focus is the life of that patient, how are you going to tell me that you heard anything of clarity behind you? That doesn't make any sense at all.
And if you were screaming
there saying, I heard that she said it, but then he's
saying,
if
he was screaming it loud enough to get your attention through all of that,
right?
Why didn't all of the other people standing around here?
Yeah, it's just wild. Let's pull this up again. Here we go. So it says that Peter admitted that she created. This is good stuff too. Peter admitted that she created the image of Karen Reed and Alan Jackson embracing that was given to the Daily Mail. And I think that was the that kind of viral video, that AI video that was going around, and that got debunked like instantly by experts that came on a lot of these like Fox News shows and stuff, and you could tell that it was literally fake AI. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you get into the logistics of how that story came out and what happened there, this is completely supported by if you look at some of the tweets of Christy Citrone, right? So Christy Schneider, who was also formerly someone who was on their side, because just like Mary Bagwell, because they were specifically lied to about text messages existing where Karen Reed admitted to the crime, which is completely untrue.
Right.
But you have this scenario where we literally can see that people were leery of sending that out and spreading it around because they knew it was fake. So they were trying to use cutouts like Christy to send it to them saying, hey, can you send it to this person? Because we don't have this credibility, or can you do this? And there were several news outlets that had expressed the opinion to them when they were trying to place this story that they weren't going to run it. So because they couldn't verify the authenticity,
right,
they would never turn over the name of the people who shot the video to the even to the news agencies who wanted it, who would have volunteered to keep that information private. They would have allowed them to be a confidential source. They would have allowed them to do those things. They would not turn over the name of the person that shot it.
Okay, so you're talking about the original video that was used to make this fictitious AI.
No, I'm just talking about whatever they claimed was
the
video, right? So I'm not suggesting that the video was real, false, somewhat altered, or whatever it was. Aiden admitted on his show last night that when he first saw it, he thought that it was real and he didn't care. I actually also took that position. I'm not the morals police. I'm not the whatever else. I didn't know if the video was real or not. I just didn't care. I said, this is irrelevant to the larger story. Like, if this is happening, it's probably unfortunate. I feel bad for people that are in bad situations, but other than that, it's not at all not understandable how that could come to be, in terms of you're spending a lot of time working with someone who's fighting for your freedom. You have all of these things. I could see how that could possibly ever happen, right? But at the end of the day, I didn't really care about it. But once it became such an issue and you start looking into it, all of the little pieces that don't line up, his face, like there's something clearly wrong with his face in the video. There's all of
multiple
these things.
arms in it as well. Like they had a really good expert, and if people want to look it up, I can remember. I think it was on Banfield. They had a digital rendering expert, or whatever you call them.
I saw a clip of that. He was great.
Debunked it in about 2 seconds.
But the point is they were trying to claim what they were trying to claim. I should have made that more clear. What they were trying to claim was that the people were afraid to come forward. The people, whoever took the video, was afraid to come forward. But we know it was a live photo. And then, I think once you see the CapCut logo in it, that probably is your first clue that something's really wrong. Live photos don't include CapCut. And if you're extracting a photo from iOS, from an operating system, you don't need to use like a CapCut screen recording to do so. You can literally just do a backup extraction of your own phone. They could have grabbed the live photo in video form. It all would have been very easy to do above board. So this is everything in this case, everything that you see, all of these things that are easy to do above board, taking a picture of the taillight when they pick up the car in Dighton, above board, right? Before they tow the car, take a picture of it as it sits at her parents' house. All of these things that are easy to do aren't done. All of the above board stuff isn't done. And we just end up with this collection of suspicious things and suspicious data collection and all of this. It's just like the rest of the case.
Yeah. I mean, we've had Todd McGee on, my good friend Todd McGee, retired Mass State Police, talks about the crime scene all the time. No one came in. No one immediately cordoned off the scene. No one took photographs of the scene. We even saw that in the Canton report that just came out. Everything that was dropped in that. And the sad thing about it is, the real investigation into what happened to John O'Keefe, that evidence now has all been destroyed. So it was never initially preserved right at the crime scene. So the sad thing about it is, when Karen's acquitted and walks out of the courtroom, to go back now and look at all of this evidence was there, there's no evidence of to go in and actually start investigating what truly happened to John. It's going to be hard to piece all that together because it's been tainted, it's been destroyed. And I'm going to tell you, I guarantee you, everybody that's watching today, that is going to be the big sticking point when Karen Reed's team gets these cops up on the stand, anybody that was doing any evidence collection there, and they're going to just rip into these people. Why did you not, use, police issued containers? Why did you not take, I mean, they're going to slam into this evidence and show that it truly was tainted.
Yeah. Why did you not secure this crime scene? Why did you not have a scribe logging everyone in and out of the crime scene as they arrived? That when, I didn't get to this when we were on with Todd, when you had me on the other day with Todd, but that was, again, when I was making the comparisons to the Aaron Hernandez trial, Todd brought up that the first officer on scene has the responsibility of securing the scene. And then they become the scribe for everyone else that's the piece there. That's what I learned in the Aaron Hernandez trial, is that cop then becomes the scribe, signing everyone else in and out. He owns the security of that crime scene until he's relieved by somebody else, maybe, but that's his job to do that. And I know this case was a little backward because there are exceptions and things that are done a little bit differently. If there's a live victim who, they prioritize his life-saving measures that they're going to take on that victim. So maybe at the very initial moment that they got there, they're going to check for a pulse. They're going to try and but definitely by the time EMS arrives and takes over the medical care of the patient, that stuff should have been done. And it wasn't. And there's no excuse.
Yeah, there is no excuse. I can't wait until all these officers get back up on the stand, and Todd and I can kind of pick this apart and to have his insight, because he's worked for the Mass State Police. He's had multiple years of experience. He's probably testified in cases, and to see, and hear his take on all of this and going through, the crime scene collection. I think it's going to be some really great content. Now that we've had trial one that's happened, we have so many more pieces of that we can dig into. And this is what I love about all of this as well, too, is you have the prior testimony. You have all the conversations that have taken place, things that have been documented. We can go back. Well, not me, but the Reed team can go back and start cross-referencing this, just like we've been seeing over the last, how many days in a trial? We're into 4 or 5 days in trial. It's exactly what they're doing right now. And it's just going to be the standard through this entire trial. This is not what you said. This is not what you said to the grand jury. What is it? And start really backing these people up against the wall. Honestly, I think they were a little too nice in the first trial. I think go ahead, Jason. Yeah, they certainly were. And you see this, they've been successful at it with every witness so far, where they've been successful. I mean, we know they didn't cross carry in the first trial, and we know that they're not going to. I love that they did.
Me too.
I'm glad they did this time around. And I think probably the last time she might have come off as like a sympathetic witness. They probably didn't want to go there, and then just needed to lay into her this time, because I thought it was the perfect setup, because we haven't seen Jennifer McCabe yet. We haven't seen Colin Albert. We haven't seen Brian Albert. So I think that was the perfect setup. Let's just get to her. Let's see what we can get. And then ultimately look what happened the other day. It was disastrous for the Commonwealth. You can't tell me that Hank Brennan didn't get in his car in driving home and threw out 1,000 motherfuckers that day. I mean, that was disastrous.
He's pounding on his steering wheel, right? You get the Nan's got a great point here too, having the insights of Michael Easter, even though he can't testify. That's true. He's an expert, and he is going to give them the great lines of inquiry there. I've said from the beginning, to go back to your initial point that started this little salvo, I probably can find you a tweet from over a year ago, probably pre-first trial, where I said nobody is ever going to be convicted for the murder of Officer John O'Keefe, because even if we already see this case falling apart, just like we all could pretty easily predict that it would, unless they come up with some amazing new video of Karen Reed hitting John O'Keefe with the car, which we know they can't do. She's never getting convicted. And so when we look at her never getting convicted of this crime, anyone else that they charge for this crime is simply going to say, no, just listen to the Commonwealth. Karen Reed did it. You know, there's never going to be a scenario where they'll be able to successfully prosecute this crime, except for one, and that is if somebody opens their mouth. And when I say somebody, I mean it's going to have to be a Brian Higgins, a Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert. It's going to have to be somebody who was there. That's the only way that anyone is ever going to successfully get prosecuted for this case, is if somebody who was there and is aware of what happened opens their mouth because they're in trouble for some other reason, and they need immunity because something happens. It's not likely, but it's probably the only path to anyone ever being held accountable for the death of Officer John O'Keefe.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line I think this just ends it, case in point, okay? If Karen Read did this, and I've always said this all along, if Karen Read did this, then I would think the prosecution's or the Commonwealth's opening statement would be this: we know that there's a ring camera across the street, okay? A retired Canton police sergeant lives across the street, and the name slipped me because there's so many damn names. But Aiden went out there. I've been out there multiple times. We know the view that is right there at 34 Fairview. This would have just ended it. You just play the video and you say, Karen Read hit and killed Officer John O'Keefe and left, and this is what happened, and it would have been over. Ironically, it didn't capture anything of worth. It didn't work that night, but yet there's neighbors that saw in all the EMS response that night and literally took pictures out their windows. So it was loud enough, and this goes back to Brian Albert as well. Brian Albert didn't hear anything. I mean, there's not this many coincidences in one scenario. It just doesn't happen. You know, this is not like, you know, this is the way it is, and it just all landed this way. It's statistically impossible with all these coincidences that it's laid out this way, that no one heard anything or no one saw anything.
No, I agree. It's incredible. And by incredible, I mean not credible. It definitely, you know, it really is. Again, I hearken back to the Aaron Hernandez trial. We saw the amount of evidence in that trial. We saw evidence of when he passed through each toll gantry on the turnpike. We saw surveillance camera video from when he stopped to buy a pack of gum.
When he pulled into the lot, when they pulled into the lot to kill Odin Lloyd. And
yeah, but I'm telling you
my story about that lot.
You did, and that's the one you would expect. What I learned during that trial was that the minutia of things that they showed every step along the path when he was on the way there. They showed, again, a convenience store. They stopped to buy Bubblicious, right? They stopped to buy. We even found out the brand of gum that was bought. We saw the receipt from the convenience store. We saw the surveillance cameras from them at the gas pumps. We saw every toll gantry that they checked in with. We knew exactly how fast they were going because of those things on average. That all of these data points that we saw, we saw every camera along the way. And all of these data points that we saw in that trial, and we look at this trial, and we have, not only don't we have any, they didn't ask. They didn't go to those neighbors and ask for the footage. They never even asked. And if the Canton PD can say, we don't really investigate murders, I can tell you, asking for surveillance camera footage is so routine. It's routine, and you get an offender bender, and the first thing people do is look around and see what cameras would have captured it. And the police go and they ask. You don't do that for the murder of a police officer.
I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. You have a Boston police officer that has died, and you don't think that's not important to walk the neighborhood and look and see who has all these ring cameras that we can get footage that's pointing at that house? That is absolutely absurd that you wouldn't do that. And to your point, Jason, people make bigger cases out of fender benders. They look up in the Target parking lot. Oh shit, my car get hit. I'm going to go inside and, ask the manager or security, hey, can you rewind it back an hour and see who hit my car? Can we get a license plate? And here we are. We have a dead Boston police officer, and no one is concerned in the neighborhood about getting video footage.
In the minute they knew about the taillight evidence, so you didn't take a picture when you picked up the car, because you can say I didn't. They actually will say that they didn't know at that point, right? But the minute that they found out about the taillight evidence, when they supposedly found it in the snow the next day, not just the neighbors, they would have gone along every possible route that Karen Reed's car could have taken to get to 34 Fairview and looked for, or more importantly, when she left 34 Fairview and looked at every single camera along the way to try and find a picture of that tail light. That's what they would have done.
Yep.
In any other case. And we're talking about, again, the Canton police. Sure. Okay. Maybe they didn't, but Proctor and the state police, we have that text message within days where Proctor says to his friends, like, oh, nope, the homeowner's all set. He's a Boston cop too.
Right.
I have a tweet again from way over a year ago that simply says, yeah, this is just what we would commonly see where in Norfolk County, especially where police officers cover for other cops. They just happen to pick the cop that lived. In this case, they just picked the cop that lived. If John O'Keefe was injured and alive, they would have had a dilemma on their hands, right?
Yep.
But this made it easy. He's dead and they can't bring him back, right? So we're just going to support the cop that lived. And that's Brian Albert, by the way, if it wasn't clear.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Well, this is, you talked about real quick, and we'll end on this note tonight. And I want to thank Jason for jumping up with me on this Sunday. I appreciate it. If you haven't smashed the like button, please do. Let's get this to 1,000 likes. I really would appreciate that. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and then comment after this video is posted. But you talked about earlier how you got introduced to Kate Peter. I got introduced to her for the first time last year when I was down at the trial waiting on deliberation day. And I'm going to play a little bit of a clip here. And this is how I was first introduced to her in person. And I got this clip here of when they came out with their counter-protesting efforts here. I'll play this, and if you want to discuss anything on it, please do. But I love how the signs are always so, like, they talk about, you know, they talk about the free Karen Reed people that, you know, we supposedly all get together and there's one person that's making the signs and it's all a coordinated effort. I couldn't see a more coordinated, well, a shitty coordinated effort here with the signs. I mean, it's all the same handwriting. It's goofy. And the funny thing is they all hide their faces when they're out there.
The big county boss, who is also part of the state PR campaign led by Karen Reed's defense, Jessica Rashada. They're all complicit in witness intimidation. The Massachusetts State Police have had to do their job.
Folks, let's stick to the telephone pole, please. To the telephone pole. Thank you. Let's stick to that. Keep that going. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, they all hide their faces.
Yeah.
No, this is
That's Lindsay, right?
Except for crazy Julie on the right. She likes to be.
yeah.
Lindsay right there hiding her face.
Yeah.
This, when I see this, it just reminds me of something that would be on South Park.
Yeah.
I hate him. I hate him.
It's being a coward and hiding her face.
This is all my fault. Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? She hit him. Larry Jones dead at 5 a.m. I didn't want to tell him. Wake up. I thought I could have flipped him. I didn't think I did it that hard. That's what she said.
That's also the famous day of Kate's crazy eyes things where she was giving the interview and saying, you know, basically scolding the reporter for not believing her. And the other thing is when they got there, I think it was Gretchen Voss.
Mm-hmm.
They were met somewhere down the street before they got to the thing and had a little interview that was obviously prearranged. You had all of this. But they put all this effort into prearranging. We're going to make this big appearance. They wait till the very last day. They never show up during trial, right? So they wait till the very last day. And what they can gather is a couple people together. Yeah, they made a little bit of noise, but they looked like morons.
Yeah.
And they did this whole thing. I infamously, I'll find it. I'll text it to you later, but I infamously love that because that picture of Kate Peter wearing the stripes and holding up the sign.
Yes.
I made a meme template of that sign so that people could use it. And my contribution was something along the lines of, when you go to the Halloween party dressed as a Hamburglar and everybody still thinks you're Grimace. Like that was my.
I just want to play this really quick. This was Jess Machado that day, and I love her comment here about Kate, because you could hear early in the video they were coming after Jess. But I want to play this. And by the way, I want to let everybody know here in the chat room, Jess Machado will be joining me live on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She's a courtroom insider. She's going to be sitting in during the Karen Read 2.0 trial, and she's actually also reporting for the Daily Wire, but she's going to come on live with me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So set all your reminders there, and we'll get all the insides in court. But I want to play what her response to this was, and then we'll wrap it up.
At the supporters level, and again, adding to it and making it into a circus, it's so unfortunate that this is even happening. Everybody should know, for days and days and days, we've had massive crowds here with not one police problem or interaction. If anything, the biggest issue was press. Greedy press mongers that were trying to get close to Karen, push Karen, make things uncomfortable for her and her team, who were willing to actually sacrifice their SJC passes out of the attempt to get the money shot. And aside from that, there has been no issue with these people out here. As a matter of fact, do you have time for this? Because I can stop. We had someone come over to us early in the morning who said they have a property adjacent to here, and they wanted to compliment whoever was in charge about how peaceful it has been. There isn't one piece of trash in the aftermath of each one of these standouts, and how happy they were that this was not as invasive as they thought it was going to be. And now here we are today. We've got these people showing up, making a scene, causing a spectacle, trying to get their 5 minutes of fame. That's all I'm going to say, but I will tell you, from the picture that I had, which was from far away, I could see Kate's nose in that picture from all the way across the lawn. That's it.
That's great. And you know what? People look at that. They, I see this a lot with Aiden and things that he says where people are like, that's mean. You don't know how to do this. When you start to look at what these people, the stuff that they've gone after Jess Machado with, you start to look at this. Incidentally, Jess Machado was one of the first people who knew my identity because I was having a conversation with her, and she didn't know. She's very careful about her sources and who she talks to. And she didn't know who I was, and I was coming at her with things. So I actually sent her a picture of my driver's license. She was the first person who pretty much knew who I was.
And Lauren,
my friend Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Nice to see you. Yeah. She said they have said far worse, and it's true. It's true. Jason, excellent show today. Thank you for coming over here on this Sunday morning, hanging out on this edition of the Super Sunday show here on LTL. You can check out Jason Broyles on X at not Hailey Walbrecht.
It's HW on your case, actually, at HW on your case.
Okay, perfect. Or you can just look up not Hailey Walbrecht. I'm sure you can find him. And look, we'll bring you in during the trial here if you want to come back and hang out. Always love hearing your insight, and very knowledgeable on all of these subjects. And we always have a good time over here. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have retired Mass State Police Todd McGee live on the show at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on standby, we're going to have the 3 combo. Possibly Nan Gallagher will be joining us along on that live again, too. And then, of course, on Wednesday night, Jess Machado, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm really looking forward to that first conversation. And she's going to join me on Wednesday nights throughout the trial. And Jason, will you come back and hang out again?
I will come back anytime. I also just want to add, this week on Wednesday, the 30th, I will be trying to cover 2 hearings in related cases here. Lindsay Gaetani will be being arraigned for a charge of threatening in the kind of widely publicized phone call threats that she made to a witness in this case. And on Aiden Carney also has another hearing in his case in Dedham, I believe, in the district court. I'm not sure it's district or superior, but I will be there and picking up on any additional Karen Read coverage I can. So if any of you are out there on the street, come over and say hello. I'd love to meet you.
I will see you on Wednesday because I will be going into court on Wednesday. So I'll see you down there in Dedham.
I love it. All right, perfect.
Awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate everybody. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks again to Jason. And we'll talk to everybody soon. I'll see everybody tomorrow night, Monday night, 8 p.m. For the Monday night show. Take care, everybody. Have a good Sunday, and free Karen Read. Free Turtle Boy. Take care.
Yes, amen.